This week, WordPress vulnerabilities are worse than you think. Apple updates, learn lessons from the Gentoo project, Dotcom, if you haven't heard his name in a while, we'll be talking about him. Discovering zero-day exploits, bypassing Apple's USB restricted mode, stolen certificates. Jason Wood from Paladin Security joins us for expert commentary on how to solve the developer versus cyber security team battle. All that and more on this edition of Hack Naked News. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show that brings you the security news each week. And despite popular belief, we do wear pants. It's Hack Naked News.
The breach was huge news at the time.
Linux monitoring tool.
List of affected devices. You can check out the link in the show notes.
Ars Technica is reporting that hackers have cracked the Nintendo Switch this week.
Tracking people's locations and stuff like that.
You'll want to be rolling out updates if you're using Lenovo hardware. Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending your assets? Have you penetration tested your public assets? Start 2018 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night. Welcome everyone to Hack Naked News, episode 180. For Tuesday, July 10th, 2018. I'm, of course, your host, Paul Asadarian, broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. Check out our new bags. Look at this. I got bags. Hold on. It goes the other way. We're going to be giving this away at Black Hat and DEF CON. Probably more so for DEF CON if you visit us in the vendor area. We'll have these to give away if you purchase something, or if you come up and tell us you're a fan, we'll give you a bag. We'll also be at the pool cabana at both Black Hat at Mandalay Bay and at Caesars for DEF CON. We'll be in the pool area, so make sure you come by the pool area because we've got free little suntan lotion giveaways as well as other stuff that is in the works. More announcements to come on that front. There's going to be all kinds of things happening at our respective pool cabanas, so you're going to want to make sure that you check that out. And we've got a webcast coming up with Domain Tools. Is that true? My teleprompter already went past. Anyway, there is a webcast coming up for Domain Tools. Make sure, I think you can go to securityweekly.com/domain tools. No one said that that's wrong yet, so I'm assuming that, yes, you go to securityweekly.com/domain tools, fingerprinting threat actors, strategies, and tactics that actually work. Be myself, Michael Santarcangelo, and Mike Thompson from Domain Tools. And that is happening sometime pretty soon. I don't know the dates. I'm a hot mess today, apparently. But just go register for that. It'll July 18th. It'll be a lot of fun, I promise. Alrighty, now on to the security news for this week. WordPress 4.97 is the update that fixes a pair of security vulnerabilities. Now, you may think that these are not a big deal, but if you dig into the article, they are, because I should have known this just from reading it, and then the light bulb went off as 2 file deletion vulnerabilities were fixed, which, as I said, may not sound like a big deal, but when an author deletes the attachment or the file wp-config.php, it allows the author to go through the initial WordPress configuration, which could allow an attacker to compromise the entire site. eWeek reports is reporting on the story and says that there are over 75 million sites today using WordPress. Apple has released multiple security updates. It appears that this is significant, as Apple has addressed security vulnerabilities in multiple products. And the vulnerabilities range from could exploit some of the vulnerabilities to take control of an infected system to a host of other things. The products are iTunes, Windows, iCloud, iTunes for Windows, Windows iCloud, Safari, macOS, High Sierra, and El Capitan, watchOS, tvOS, and iOS. So if you have any of those products, make sure you go apply those updates. There were several updates to be applied. The Gentoo GitHub repo hack was made possible by 3 rookie mistakes. Now, say what you will about Gentoo and making mistakes. We're all human, whatever. What I liked about this article was the remediation plan moving forward as outlined by the Gentoo project. Since this particular breach happened due to poor password usage, two-factor authentication is now the default in the project's GitHub organization, and will eventually come to all users that use any of the project's repos. I think that's important. We talk about two factors being effective at preventing these password reuse attacks, which was part of this attack against Gentoo. Now, a new password policy that mandates password managers is also being planned. I think that's kind of like for my own personal thing and for work, right? You got a password manager, use two-factor authentication. I will say it's a pain in the ass sometimes, but I'll live with that somewhat inconvenience in favor of security. Now, also on the agenda is a review of who needs access to repos and a clean out of those who don't, as well as proper backups and an incident plan moving forward so the project won't need to rely on luck. As if you read the link is in the show notes, the entire incident response is kind of documented there for you to read through, which, again, they sounded like they needed more of a plan other than, hey, I know someone that works at GitHub. Let's contact them and see if they can help us fix it. So I thought that was a very interesting article, and I do like the remediation plan. As the third piece, I think is more important to focus on the defense, right? Two-factor, password manager, and the third defense that was there is making sure the concept of least privilege, right? Making sure only those that need access to certain repos have that access. If everyone could just do those 3 things, we'd be in good shape. Of course, we say that about other sets of 3 things or 5 things or 7 things, but anyway, security's hard. Kim.com loses the latest extradition appeal. New Zealand's Court of Appeal upheld the decision that Mr.com and 3 others can be extradited to stand for trial for copyright infringement and fraud. Now, what's interesting is the charges are related to Mr.com's now defunct file-sharing website, Mega Upload, which allowed millions of people to download digital content. The article goes on to clarify that the copyright infringement is not a crime in New Zealand, which is why a previous ruling said that they could not be extradited. However, they may still face extradition on the fraud charges. They are, in fact, appealing to New Zealand's Supreme Court. So more to follow on that story. 2 zero-day exploits found after someone uploaded unnamed proof-of-concept vulnerability or exploit to VirusTotal. In late March, researchers at ESET found a malicious PDF file in VirusTotal, which they shared with the security team at Microsoft as a potential exploit for an unknown Windows kernel vulnerability. After analyzing the malicious PDF, the Microsoft team found the same file includes 2 different zero-day exploits. One for, this is a shocker, Adobe Acrobat, and Reader, and the other targeting Microsoft Windows systems. Patches have been released. This is kind of history. They were patched back in May. Details of this vulnerability and the process have just been released, and patches are available, so make sure you apply those. I thought that was an interesting way to uncover a vulnerability in an operating system in 2 different Adobe products. Researchers reveal a bypass for Apple's USB restricted mode. Now, USB restricted mode was released as part of iOS 11.4.1, had removed an iPhone USB access feature so that after an hour, the iPhone has been locked, the phone's Lightning port, its charging and data port will automatically be locked. However, researchers at Elcomsoft said that connecting an iPhone to a Lightning accessory or even an untrusted USB accessory will reset the restricted mode countdown timer as long as the iPhone still has not entered into USB restricted mode. Stolen certificates from D-Link are used to sign password-stealing malware. Somehow, members of an advanced persistent threat hacking group known as Black Tech obtained the certificates belonging to D-Link and an organization called Changing Information Technology. The researchers with antivirus provider ESET, again, ESET, I think that's the same company as the previous story, they're on a roll, said in a blog post the attackers then used certificates to sign two pieces of malware, one a remotely controlled backdoor and the other a related password stealer. Both pieces of malware are referred to as Plead and are used in espionage campaigns targeted in locations in East Asia. So add this to your list. In addition to configuration and patching, make sure your certificate authorities are updated as well, as usually that could come down as part of your operating system and or software. So with that, we'll take a short break and come back with Jason Wood from Paladin Security. Stay tuned. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/HNN. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. We are back on Hack Naked News with Jason Wood. Hey, I got some suntan lotion for you. I know you said you weren't going to Black Hat or DEF CON. Maybe you can use it at DerbyCon, perhaps.
Perhaps, though about half the time it seems DerbyCon's a little overcast.
Yeah. Yes. What's going on, Jason? How are you?
Good, man. How you been?
Good. What's going on this
Excellent.
week?
So I ran across a couple of interesting blog posts. Actually came out of some folks from Veracode that I wanted to bring up here because it's something I've run into, as I'm sure many folks have in their careers. And really, they're talking about the tensions that exist between development teams and the security team. Like I said, no real shock there that there's some contention going on. I'm sure if listeners, if you've ever been to any kind of security conference and listened to the talks there, you've heard at least one or two talks where the presenter kind of gets a little insulting towards development for having no idea about security. And I've heard developers make similar comments back at security and how we're just roadblocks, get in the way and stop new features and things like that clients want from being rolled out. So I thought we'd just do a quick look at these. The first one was written by Chris and VP of Research at CA Veracode. And in his post, he proposed two steps to help bridge this divide between the two, between the development and security teams. And the first thing he started off was recommending that the organization recognize that security of code is just a component of code quality. You know, when we look at a lot of the flaws and stuff that are out there in apps, these are basically bugs at their most basic component. So to help developers write better quality code and more secure code, the organization should offer training on how to go about writing secure code, and enable developers to have the time to go do it. It's not enough to sit there and just say, well, you can go over here and check out these resources on your own time, but get some training in here and sponsor this for your development staff. And one of the things I've noticed is as developers become more aware of the issues that occur in application security and how to address that, then they become more likely to pay attention to that as they're writing their code. And they get more personally invested in this because to them, their code is something important to them. It's kind of a reflection of how they think about things. And so, like I said, this is something I've noticed. I've seen people who are very resistant to anything to do with security. And then once they became aware of some of these problems, all of a sudden you talk to them later and they're writing things into their code to try and address some of these issues with really not much incentive beyond that. The second recommendation that Chris had was to get the two teams working together more closely. Get the team members in contact with each other so they can understand a bit more of what each one is dealing with, the pressures that they have. He also recommended the idea of having a designated security champion on the development team. This person would be someone who understands AppSec and helps their coworkers build better code. This would be somebody on the development staff rather than somebody from the security team imposing this. I like this idea. This is something that actually mirrors a concept that I read about in a book called Team of Teams by retired General Stanley McChrystal, where he would take individuals from different disciplines in the military that he had in his command, and embed them in other teams, and even like with the State Department and whatnot, and get them helping people out. And as they helped these teams that they were embedded on, it broke down some of the barriers and rivalries between some of the teams, and they became more effective at what they were doing. So yeah, I like the idea of having this interaction with the team, and have the security champion, who's a developer who understands AppSec, actually working with the other developers. The other blog post I read was actually on the Veracode blog itself by Malena Spencer, and she recapped a talk given by Veracode CTO Chris Weisapol. And in this talk, Chris recommends that there needs to be more integration between the development security teams to make the team see that they're part of a larger group, that they're on the same team, not rivals within the company. Now, the goal of this is to get security to be more of the development process rather than something that happens on the back end. I'm sure if you have, worked in a development shop in the security realm, and you find a flaw in the application, you've seen examples of how much work it takes to retrofit that or to do a bug fix, particularly when you get into core components. If you can move that to the earlier in the process, it becomes much cheaper to fix. Now, that's a tall order, though, of course, because as we're starting out on new projects, typically you're in a small organization without resources for security. But I still think that would be, like I said, earlier in the process is much easier than later. Paul?
Well, it's not even earlier in the process, I don't think, anymore. We talk about this a lot on Application Security Weekly. It's just part of the whole process, right? I mean, it starts with threat modeling. That's the earliest,
right,
in the process. It comes into when you're developing code, right? A lot of things you can do to make sure. I mean, awareness is one thing. Training is one thing. Ensuring that they're all using libraries that are updated is a huge part of code security. Then when you get into the DevOps process, integrating that security testing, actually before you get there, right? Even in agile testing, you're integrating security testing with functional testing, with user acceptance testing. Then as you roll out in the operations, all of your core components are constantly being tested and deployed and redeployed. Any kind of operating system or infrastructure patches, all part of, basically all the different parts of your container are constantly being updated as well. So I think we've really seen a shift from, it's kind of why I'm not on board with the whole like shift left thing. Like, I think it's just got to be part of a lot of the different steps in the process for development is kind of what I'm realizing as we speak about this weekly now in Application Security Weekly. With Keith, who's like living this exact challenge today.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, I like how you make the comment there about this earlier. I said earlier in the process. I'm thinking of a project rather than necessarily the process. But yeah, it should be part of the entire string of things, like you said, from threat modeling at the very beginnings as you're doing your architecture and whatnot, all the way through the pipeline. And one of the things Chris commented on is the need for automation, particularly when you get into DevOps, where we have so many things happening, quickly, a number of times, deployments happening all the time, stuff like that. Have that testing happening as much as possible on an automated basis. There's always going to be some things that are going to need some manual testing. You're going to need manual testing. Business logic flaws, for example, are terribly difficult to try and catch in any kind of automated situation. But certainly there's a lot of other areas where we can get ahead of that and make sure we're testing constantly. So yeah, both articles are a really good read. I felt they only take a few minutes. I've got the links to them here in the show notes. Really, the ideas that are here are not very tactical in nature. I mean, sure, you could say training is, but you need a lot of buy-in from senior management to make security part of the development process, to do things like break down walls between teams. I've certainly seen examples where it's not been done well, and management is actively building those barriers, and other instances where management works to bring those down and how that plays out in the organization. So it's something that, I believe is important, that, we shouldn't have this notion of two opposing pitched battles within a company. between development and security. We need to have the teams working together. And anything we can do to break those barriers down is going to pay off over time.
Awesome. Jason, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching Hack Naked News. We'll see you next time.